So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Caroline Rickards. I'm the chair of the Women in Physiology Committee with the American Physiological Society, and we administer the Bodil Schmidt-Nielsen Award. So welcome, everybody, to this ceremony to award our Dr. Kurt Albertine for the Bodil Schmidt-Nielsen Award for 2017. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the award and the requirements to be a recipient of this award. Before I begin, I'd like to welcome our distinguished guests. We have the current president of the APS, Janie Reckelhoff. We have past president, Patricia Molina. And we have incoming president, Dennis Brown. And is Marty Frank here? Not yet. Okay, Marty Frank, the APS executive director, will be here as well. So welcome, everybody. So the Bodil Schmidt-Nielsen Award is obviously in honor of Dr. Bodil Schmidt-Nielsen, who was born in Denmark, and for many of you already know that she's the daughter of Nobel laureate Auguste Krogh and Marie Krogh. In 1941, she received a DDS degree and she briefly practiced dentistry. In 1946, she received a Doctor of Odontology, and then in 1955, a Doctor of Philosophy. In 1971, Dr. Bodil Schmidt-Nielsen was the first female elected to APS Council, and in 1976, she was the first female APS President. So that's obviously an important landmark for us as the Women in Physiology Committee. She was a very distinguished scientist. She focused on the role of the kidney and other excretory organs in regulating the osmolality and volume of the extra and intracellular compartments. And she received the second Henry Pickering Bowditch Award in 1957. The Schmidt-Nielsen Distinguished Mentor in Science Award was established in 2003 by the American Physiological Society. It honors a member of the American Physiological Society who is judged to have made an outstanding contribution to physiological research and demonstrated dedication and commitment to excellence in training of young physiologists. And this is through mentoring, guiding and nurturing their professional and personal development, developing novel educational methods and materials, promoting scientific outreach efforts, attracting individuals to the field of physiology, or by otherwise fostering an environment exceptionally conducive to education in physiology. And for anyone who knows Dr. Albertine, I think he can probably check off each of those requirements for this award. And it's judged, as I mentioned, by the APS Women in Physiology Committee. So past awardees from 2004 to 2016 are listed here. And do we have any of these awardees in the audience? Not today. But you can see that it's an esteemed group of individuals who've achieved excellence in both science and in mentoring. And that's a very important distinction with this award, that it's both for exceptional science and exceptional mentoring. So our 2017 awardee, as you all know, is Dr. Kurt Albertine. The nomination and introduction will be conducted by Lisa Joss Moore. And then supporting letters were received from some of Dr. Albertine's colleagues, Jeff Laitman, Michael Matthey, and Bradley Yoder, and also by trainees including Bo Foreman, Eveline Staub, Benjamin Clayton, and Sierra Block. So I'd like to briefly also just thank the Women in Physiology Committee. We are, as a committee, focused on issues pertaining to the education, employment, and professional opportunities available to junior physiologists. We promote the discipline of physiology as a rewarding career to junior scientists and encourage their active membership in the society. And we coordinate activities with other committees on women within the FASEB organisation and those of other scientific societies that meet intermittently with the APS. These are the committee members over the 2016-2017 period. So I'd like to thank all of those committee members who assisted in the review of this award for this year. And also a very special thank you to the APS staff, Marsha Mattis, Brooke Bruthers, and Alison Hood for your exceptional assistance with everything that we do. So Dr. Albertine, I'd like to congratulate you on this award. And I'd like to point out something peculiar or interesting or funny that I saw on this picture. Dr. Albertine is wearing a tie with sheep that are wearing ties. So I think that maybe is a good summary of Dr. Albertine's personality. So thanks very much and congratulations, Dr. Albertine.
Yes, they have a better class of sheep on Kurt's tie than we have in Australia, because our Australian sheep don't wear ties themselves. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming today to honour Kurt. I'm so delighted to introduce Kurt to you this afternoon. He really is very, very well deserving of this award. Kurt received his PhD from Loyola University of Chicago and Stritch School of Medicine. He did his postdoctoral training in pulmonary and cardiovascular physiology at the Cardiovascular Research Institute in UCSF. He held faculty positions at the University of South Florida, the University of Pennsylvania, and Jefferson Medical College. And then finally, in 1993, we were lucky enough to have him join the University of Utah. He's currently a professor there in pediatrics, medicine, and neurobiology and anatomy. Now, I'm pretty sure that all of the young people in the audience will agree with me that if you have a picture of somebody from the 70s, you're obliged to use it. Check. So I chose this one out of a selection of several pretty good ones because I think this one really keeps the Chicago mobster theme going. So if we fast forward some 40 years, a little less hair, here we are today. Now, during these years, Dr. Albertine was busy developing an internationally renowned research program centred around the development of bronchopulmonary dysplasia. He was also developing and implementing innovative teaching methods and serving as editor-in-chief of the anatomical record. But what I'd like to highlight here today isn't any of these accomplishments. Rather, what I want to focus on is Dr. Albertine's incredible reach as a mentor. To date, Dr. Albertine has directly trained almost 200 scientists. That's probably more than double the number of people in this room right now. Of these folks, the majority have been undergraduate or medical students. Of the undergraduate students, 82% of them matriculated to degree programs that incorporate physiologic study, including graduate school, medical school, and things like that. And of course, many of these have then gone on to hold faculty positions. I think the winning combination has arisen because Dr. Albertine feeds off the inquisitive nature of the early learner. And because of that, those early learners develop a hunger for more knowledge and even greater achievements. He pushes his trainees to synthesize the things that they learn in his lab, to question and look to a broader audience, and then ask the next question. I believe part of the reason that Dr. Albertine is able to demand so much from his students, which they willingly deliver, is because he has a strong personal rapport with each and every one of them. Dr. Albertine's reach as a mentor exceeds well beyond just the students in his lab. He has directly and indirectly impacted the broader academic success of many faculty, some of whom are in this room, and myself included. His faculty advocacy at the University of Utah is wide-reaching and includes service as the Associate Dean for Faculty Administration at the School of Medicine. During that time, he led the development of the University of Utah initiative for family paid leave. That's paid leave for both women and men. Outside of his official role with the School of Medicine, he's taken time to meet with young faculty to encourage them to develop a niche within their department and to become valuable members of the university community. Dr. Albertine's teaching and mentoring reach extends even beyond the University of Utah. He's internationally known for his instruction of grants and manuscript writing. His writing workshops are a favourite of the University of Utah and at several scientific meetings. There's usually standing room only. And yes, this shirt does say, "Don't make me take out my red pen." Over the last several years, I've been lucky enough to co-teach these workshops with him. My observation in this setting is that Dr. Albertine's energy to truly engage his audience and his learners is actually quite astonishing. And this brings me to my last point. Kurt Albertine is a mentor to me. He's helped me shape my career, he's provided opportunities, he's delivered the encouragement and the support to move out of my comfort zone when that's what I needed to do. This magnificent portrait of Kurt that was drawn by his wife Laura pretty much says it all. He's a quirky scientist with a passion for research, a fierce dedication to his students and trainees and sheep, and he has genuine talent for helping people get where they want to go. And so I'm delighted to introduce to you today Dr. Kurt Albertine, the 2017 Bodil M. Schmidt-Nielsen Distinguished Mentor and Scientist Awardee. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You'll find your own talk.
All right, now how do I find my talk?
Here we go.
Need youth to help.
He's very good mentoring. Which one?
That one.
But I like to help him with technology because, you know.
Because I need help.
Be kind.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. You made me laugh seeing some of those pictures, for sure. I don't have anything to disclose, really, except that I'm not as young as I once used to be. I've been around a while. Kim Barrett, a former president of the APS, signed this. That was back in 2013. So I've been a member of the American Physiological Society ever since I was a fellow with Norman Staub at UCSF. Our research program is made predominantly possible by a peer review process at NIH, and we would be nowhere if we didn't have the magnificent organization called NIH and what it represents, not only for us old established investigators, but bringing up the next generation of young investigators. So I always like to express my appreciation for funding to the NIH up front. A weird title, I agree, mentor. I found this in Urban Dictionary. I usually don't go to such things, but I didn't know how else to tackle this responsibility of telling you about what we've done and why. And mentoring is an adult who teaches you. And I thought, well, that's does describe me to a certain extent. And anything that relates to the mind or the word mental. So it has many possible uses. And that's why I found that this was the most appropriate word or title for my presentation. And this really sums up the last 25 years of my research activity. Is my lab is filled with young people who are looking up into the sky at their own professional aspiration for a number of degrees, which are shown up in the right-hand corner decorating Delicate Arch in southern Utah. These are some of my kids. I get corrected by my wife is that they're not my biological kids, they're my lab kids, but from my perspective, they're my kids. So I'm going to introduce you to a few of them. You can see their names, you see the degrees that they have acquired. I'll just say that Albert Wint in the middle was an art major at the University of Utah. His mother worked in the gross anatomy facility and came up to me and said, will you let Albert work in your lab? And he's now a pediatric respiratory therapist. And then there's Adam. Adam marches to his own tune. He's trying to get into physician assistant school. But this is what the kids in my lab come to work in the lab for, is they have a career aspiration and they have an expectation that that aspiration will become their reality, particularly based on the track record that we've had. I got to meet Bodil when I was a fellow at UCSF. Norman Staub introduced me to her, but I knew her prior to that because my doctoral dissertation was on renal physiology. And I was doing my research at the time when her papers were coming out, and they were critically important for understanding interstitial biology in the kidney and what shows up in the plasma versus what shows up in the urine. And we were interested in renin and renal release of renin in a physiological context. So it was a thrill to meet her. I do want to say thank you very much to Brooke and Jane and Caroline, the whole organization within the APS. This was such a magnificent surprise and thrill, and you guys are really fun to work with. I truly enjoyed getting prepared for this event today. I also want to give special thanks to a number of people. These are all the nominators. And yes, you're going to come back and see, I don't know if I don't see little Michael in the room, but Michael Mathey was my senior fellow way back when. But Jeff Laitman, Sierra and Ben, Evelyn, Bo, Brad, of course, Lisa, and Michael Mathey were the letter writers who obviously provided a compelling argument. So I was given this task. Answer 5 mentoring questions. You can read the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. So my few minutes left are going to address these mostly from a storyteller's perspective about people other than myself, although I do fit in one point. But first I want to give you a little sense of our context. We do live in 3 spheres in our program. We have a research lab program. It's big. It's our LICU, Lab Intensive Care Unit. I also have involvement in science advocacy. I've been editor-in-chief of the Anatomical Record for 12 years and have 3+ more years to go on my current 5-year contract. And then faculty advancement, which Lisa already told you, I've been a rather vocal advocate of parental family leave, whether for birth or adoption of a child, that has 3 possible income streams for faculty and a 12-month arrest of the tenure clock for those who take parental leave. And it's a very strong program, one that I'm really proud of. Though this is my lab, and the mentoring is really, it's a big deal. These young kids, undergrads and med students, want to go somewhere, and they come to me and my lab group and say, you're going to take me there, and then they make a commitment to that. And so these are just some of the folks in my lab over in this one particular photograph. We've had about 180 undergrads, about 50 medical students, only 3 residents, we have about 10 clinical fellows, and about 15 faculty and several neonatal nurse practitioners do their honors work in the lab. So that's the setting in which you're going to now have these questions answered. So my approach, what is kind of neat is expectations are defined, and they're not defined by me, they're defined by the kids that come to me. They have an expectation, they want something. They want a unique long-term, and for us long-term is 3 to 5 years. Commitment to work in the lab. They do 2 to 3, 8 or 12-hour shifts a week, including a night shift, weekend shift, tending the preterm lambs. And so they learn whole animal physiology. They turn the dials on ventilators so that you who are residents and are fellows in pediatrics, 3rd-year fellows don't get to touch the ventilator buttons. My kids do. They understand acid-base balance. It's awesome. They have a research project. They're also taking 14 to 16 credit hours as full-time students. They get to present their research at national meetings, they get co-authorship, and they also get a personal letter of recommendation from me. There is not a duplicated letter for my kids. And we want something, so we have our own expectation. We want our success, and that success is really, it does ride on the success of our kids. So here's what our lab sort of looks like. It is an immersive experience. That's Josh Hicks in the picture taking some notes from a preterm lamb, cleverly drawn by one of my kids in the lab so they don't get in trouble by the anti-medical terrorists seeing this picture. But our model is preterm lambs that we ventilate for up to a month. They get 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, neonatal intensive care. They learn physiology, every organ system. These kids can talk about physiology. They learn clinical and they develop clinical and research skills. They learn the arts of scientific writing and presentation. They have career entering applications and interviews. We have a program in the lab where we do mock interviews, where we critique their letters, their self-statements, etc., because we want our kids to get their first choice, not their second choice. That's just me. We also do the same things for coaching and advising. So in faculty advancement, I do the same things, and in scientific advocacy. It's been an unusual experience being in Utah. I'm not native to Utah. I still don't understand Utah, but there's some really fun aspects there. So I taught both Gentry and Con as first-year medical students. Con I continue to mentor. That's the F1 generation. Chandler is in the lab now. Callan is a OB nurse at University of Colorado Hospital, Children's Hospital. And I decided that I guess if we get to F3 generation, that's the time to retire. But that's the way Utah is. I get families, whole families of kids. It's really quite spectacular. So how do you train? How does your training been shaped by approaches? Well, my activity is a reflection of the people who have impacted me. And all of my mentors and coaches are generous, engaged, available, and open. And that's been probably the most important lesson. Each gave, or those who are still alive, gives of herself or himself. They promoted me or promote me. Most of the time I'm not even aware of it, such as what Lisa did. And a common expression that I've had my whole career is, what can we do for you? Selfless. And to me, that has been really quite amazing. So I'm going to just give you quickly 3 examples. This is Doc. Doc was my undergraduate and honors thesis mentor when I was in college. I got my first grant award with him as an undergrad and my first authored paper with him. And in the bottom right-hand corner, he just retired at the end of last year after 50 years on the faculty at Lawrence University. We're still friends. We still communicate. We do have a lot of fun together. That's remarkable. But that's how my life has been impacted. And then Chris O'Morrow and his wife, Jean. Chris was my doctoral dissertation mentor at Loyola. And what was kind of funny, for those of you who know Norman Staub, a few years ago before Norman died, Norman said, you know, Kurt, there's only been one person in my life who told me I had to do something. And that's his wife, of course. He said, except for Chris. Chris called him up and said, you have to take Kurt. And before Norman died, he said, you know, I didn't understand where Chris was coming from, but I'm glad I listened to him. And here is Storm and Norman at our house on the left for Halloween. And then when he turned 51, San Francisco Sal entertained us. And then we went and saw Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark at its first release. Michael Mathey was my senior fellow. Janine Wiener-Kronish, we were first-year fellows together in Norman's lab. Janine is chief of anesthesia and critical care at an insignificant institution called Mass General Hospital. She was chair of anesthesiology at UCSF for many years. And then you can see the enthusiasm in our faces in the bottom left. Lessons you've learned about the active mentoring, it's all about the trainees and the coachees. It's all about them. And I learned this really from Norman, where he once told me that when we enter into his lab, the focus is on we, not I, not me. We, the lab. And that's what I learned from him and Chris, is mentoring is about commitment, loyalty, and love. We work together and we're available. What I enjoy is nurturing ideas and plans that become my kids' plans, their projects. Feed them the idea, let them take ownership, and then things happen. And then take them to conferences, introduce them to people, to colleagues, to leaders. But sometimes tough love is necessary. And I'm just going to quickly give you 3 examples of Ashley, Katie, and Brady. University of Utah is a big university, about 35,000 total enrollment. I would say probably about 80% are pre-med when they come in freshman year. And of course, not all of them are going to get where they want to go. And that was the case for Ashley, Katie, and Brady. They all were pre-med, but none of them actually, when push came to shove, had the grade point average and the MCAT scores that made them competitive. And so we spent time together. Ashley is now a nurse. Katie just got accepted to DO school, and Brady graduated with a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Washington in Seattle and is doing a postdoc. That's fantastic success. What have you found that works, I like the, or doesn't work better, in the context of mentoring? What works? Humanism, patience, and listening. Things that I learned from Chris, Doc, and Norman. Let trainees and coachees tell their stories and then answer their questions and concerns honestly. No BS. Tell them as it is, because that's how they're going to get better. They're going to learn appropriately. But I have found other things. However hard they work, I work harder. And I finish things before them. Because if I let them down, then they're not going to succeed. And that's not acceptable. So one of the things that I do, and those who know me, I am quirky. I get exercise every day, first thing in the morning, an hour to hour and a half. I'm lucky if I get to bed between 1 and 2 in the morning because I'm on call every night for my lambs. But I get exercise in the morning because I need glucose and oxygen to my brain. One of my life lessons, this is really gnarly. Every year I get older, but the students stay the same age. It's not fair. And the other thing I like to do, which drives them a bit batty, is end discussions with the next question for them to find the answer, especially at 3 in the morning when they're going to call me at 4 in the morning. And I want an answer at 4 in the morning with references. And what's cool is they do it. So what doesn't work? This is very easy. It's all about people. Disengagement, disrespect, and dishonesty. Those are the failures to mentoring and coaching. And what finally have you learned from your mentors or mentees about effective mentoring strategies? A lot, a whole lot. Each trainee and coachee is an individual. That's how I treat them. And I work with each of them that way. It's fun. I benefit from them. Because their enthusiasm, their inquisitiveness, their drive, they're the fuel for me. They're what get me going at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. And now I'm going to give you a little parody. I'm hoping that there are a few people who get this title, Retrospectroscope. It's a book written by a former president of the American Physiological Society, Julius Comro, who created the Cardiovascular Research Institute in San Francisco. His office was next to Norman's lab, and every day, once a week, I had to go in and talk to Julius and find out from him what I was doing right or wrong. And he wrote this spectacular book. If you haven't read it, I really urge that you do read it. It's priceless. So this is my little journey. That really is at Legoland. That's my doppelganger. Views of myself in my lab. I have to admit, just a bit focused and driven. And I am a cup half full person. And when my lab's threshold is crossed, or my office, there's no I in our we laboratory research, literally and figuratively. But apparently, I don't quite see myself appropriately. So here are 4 examples. One, apparently, I severely critique writing. I didn't know this. And the creator of this is Mia, Lisa's daughter. And I do have to admit, I do circle and write where somebody says where and there and they, it gets corrected. Kind of fun thing is Molly's dad, I trained him when he was a first-year fellow many decades ago. Apparently, I don't always pay attention, and I didn't know this. So there's a picture of Bo. He's sitting over to my right, on the right half of the room for me. He got his PhD with me in 2002 to 2005. And in 2004, I pushed the recent call button on my mobile phone at 1:30 in the morning, thinking that the last time I had talked to anybody was my lab. It wasn't. It was Bo's phone, and Cindy picked it up, and oh boy, did she ream me up one side down and the other. It's just, I think she still loves me, but I don't know. But, you know, things happen. And then apparently, I mean now. So this is a picture of David sitting in the middle here to my left. He got his master's degree and PhD degrees with me, and that's his lovely wife, Celine. This is in my office today. I didn't realize that when I asked for something I meant now, but according to Celine, that's how I behaved with Dave. And now, lastly, apparently I enforce, ensure, barrage, and demand. I thought, holy moly, I'm an evil person. I'm an orc. And, but actually, there's a little story to this. So I'll let you read what this says in what I do. And part of this demanding behavior of me, my nature, is that these kids do deliver. It's very cool. And I do have strong rapport with these kids. I get wedding invitations, I get birth announcements. So far, I've had no death alerts. But these kids are my kids. And they have fun, and we have fun. And I was really glad at that last line, because at least there was some saving grace about me as an individual. And who penned this? One Lisa Joss Moore, and yes, she is late occasionally picking up her daughter, and I'm the non-genetically related responsible parental unit to go pick up her daughter as plan B when Lisa forgets. But here's the most important of my lessons, at least: respect, honor, loyalty, pride, and love. These are what have driven me. And that's Norman. He came to our son's wedding. Eric was born in San Francisco. He actually spent time in Roberta Ballard's NICU in 1981 at Mount Zion's Hospital. And Roberta is one of the most renowned neonatologists in the world. So my son has a very interesting pedigree. But to have Norman come to Utah to be at our son's wedding was spectacular. And then my wife. We've been together a long time, as you can see, and she puts up with me. It's pretty amazing. So now that I've caused her to cry, I'm going to change an emotional reaction and go to a different heart. The world is flat. I was working out last month, and I heard this by an NBA player. Last I looked, a basketball is round. And one of his contemporaries said, who in an interview, well, just saying, maybe he's right. We are in a country that is encapsulated by an ignorance, ignoring, rejecting, and or having minimal education about science, data, and evidence. This is wrong. It's unacceptable. And if you look at the earth from anywhere, from Google to an airplane, you know that the earth is not flat. Yet these kinds of statements are tolerated. So we, each one of us, you and I, so Jeff, Jean-Pierre, Eve, Kim Top over on the right, we all must respond to this. We've got to take activity, particularly that recognized by the Bodil Schmidt-Nielsen Mentoring Award. We should do at least two things. We need to take our science, our joy for science, and the importance of data, its interpretation, and its impact on everyday life to the next generations of physiologists, which epitomizes this award, and scientists in every discipline, not just physiologists. And we also have to go to the public and governmental forums and speak up for why science is so important. Not just because of the knowledge, but because of the intellect that goes with it. We ask why and show me. So I'm going to end with these three quotes. I will let you read them. I thought they were prescient. they give reason for pause. And with that, I thank you, the APS Women in Physiology Committee, Caroline, Jane, Brooke, et cetera, for this award. And of course, I want to thank all of the various funding agencies that have supported our program or programs at the University of Utah. And with that, thank you.